Well, if you're lacking in the hair department, you won't have to pay much for this potential cure for baldness. Thank you. Japanese scientists say eating McDonald's could help hair to regrow after seeing some promising results in lab tests. Apparently, the chemical used in Macca's fries is behind this harebrained idea, although it may well be a bald face like...
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. And can you believe it? Great news for bald people, perhaps including a couple of former hosts of this programme. Yes, as Nine told us on its website.
Japanese scientists say eating McDonald's fries could cure baldness.
And the network was so excited by this news that it ran the story twice, on Today and Today Extra, with two teams of presenters chortling at the very same lame puns.
Well, you won't have to pay much for this potential cure for baldness. Get it? Japanese scientists say eating McDonald's could help hair to regrow after seeing promising results in lab tests.
And it wasn't just Nine that was getting excited about this Macca's miracle. Soon Marie-Claire was also chipping in.
Science, yes, science, finds the McDonald's fries can cure your hair loss.
And news.com.au was also thrilled by the revelation that eating fries can make your hair grow back.
Chemical in McDonald's fries may be the cure for baldness, study finds. Consuming McDonald's may be the answer to preventing baldness, according to Japanese researchers.
But is that right? Well, no. We went looking for mentions of medicinal Maccas in that Japanese study with this less than catchy title and found not one. So then we contacted lead author Professor Junji Fukuda to ask if he had claimed that eating fries could cure baldness. And he told Media Watch,
no, never.
So, how did the Macca's myth get into the media? Well, the Japanese study focused on using a chemical called polydimethylsiloxane in hair transplants. And if you look it up on Wikipedia, as someone obviously did, you'll see McDonald's use it as an anti-foaming agent when cooking chicken nuggets and French fries. Bingo! Shouted Britain's Sun newspaper, and before long the story was sizzling across the world. So, how many fries would you need to eat to get your hair back? Professor Fukuda told us his study tested the effects of using 100 grams of the chemical. But Macca's told Media Watch,
in one serving of medium fries, there would be less than 1/10 of a milligram, specifically 0.00004 grams.
Right, so a mere 2.5 million servings of medium fries should do the trick. In which case, you might get your hair back, but you would be very fat. And the bad news is it wouldn't work anyway, because the Japanese study was about using the chemical to aid hair transplants. And as Professor Fukuda explained,
you still need to surgically transplant cell aggregates.
All in all, a spectacular fail, with Channel 9 scoring the worst of all. But now, to a story the media cannot get enough of, if only to complain that we shouldn't have reported it at all.
Bundle of Joyce. Madly in love, Deputy PM expecting a baby with former staffer.
Last week, the Daily Telegraph went where no one else had dared to go and revealed the worst-kept secret in national politics, that the Deputy Prime Minister and leader of the National Party was expecting a baby with his former media advisor, Vicky Campion. And the telly had these exclusive pictures to prove it.
Vicky Campion with Barnaby Joyce in June 2016 and a pregnant Campion in Canberra yesterday.
Now, if that isn't news, I don't know what is. But no sooner had the telly revealed its scoop than debate kicked off about whether the public should have been told.
With these kind of stories, is this any of our business?
Do you now believe that the private lives of politicians are no longer off limits?
Is it in the public's interest to be across a politician's personal affairs?
While it's certainly juicy as a piece of gossip, is it any of our business?
And before long, plenty of high-profile media players were firing back that the answer was no. The public had no right to know.
None of our business. It doesn't matter whether he's the Deputy Janitor or the Deputy Prime Minister. It's got nothing to do with us.
It's really Barnaby Joyce's affair, clearly, and it's his business. It's really none of our business.
The Sydney Morning Herald's political editor Peter Harcher was even more scathing in his condemnation.
If you think it's good that there is zero privacy for our political leaders, if you think we should start papping everybody, if you think we should start reporting prurient gossip as leading national news, then let's upend all our conventions and start doing that.
Crikey's Bernard Keane was of similar mind, describing the telly's story as shameful non-journalism that debases public life. And not surprisingly, the man himself was also in favour of keeping it quiet.
I'll say that private matters remain private, and I'm going to keep my private life private.
Also, not surprisingly, many of Mr Joyce's political colleagues on all sides of Parliament, who would prefer the media not to report on their personal affairs, were in vigorous agreement. But we believe this was and is a legitimate story. Barnaby Joyce is not a backbencher, nor an insignificant MP. He is the Deputy Prime Minister and leader of the Nationals. He's also campaigned on family values, the sanctity of marriage and the dangers of promiscuity. As The Guardian's Gay Alcorn wrote,
imagine Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull having an affair with a staff member and he and his wife Lucy splitting up. And imagine if the now former staffer was pregnant with Turnbull's baby. Would a single journalist in the Canberra Press Gallery argue that this was a private issue not worth reporting?
And the Telegraph's national political editor, Sharry Markson, who broke the story, offered a similar argument for publication.
Imagine if the United States President Donald Trump had a child with a former staff member. Then the US media would not hesitate to report that, and yet we tie ourselves in knots about whether we should report a story. Well, we don't at the Telegraph, but the rest of the press gallery do afterwards.
Strangely, in Australia, we don't have this debate when TV celebrities like Carl Stefanovic or sports stars like Wayne Carey have their personal lives turned over by the media. So why are politicians so special? Surely the public has a greater right to know what they are doing, since it's the public that votes them in and pays their wages. Indeed, some have criticised the Canberra Press Gallery for protecting Joyce, who is running for re-election in New England, by not printing the story that everyone knew about. But the AFR's Phil Corey says proof was lacking.
Details were sketchy. It was rumoured his former staffer, Ms Campion, was pregnant, but not to Mr Joyce. Then it was rumoured she had had a termination. It was all very sordid.
Certainly, Mr Joyce was doing his level best to stop it coming out. And perhaps that's why the media finally broke the news so brutally. Joyce's hometown paper, the Northern Daily Leader, revealed last week that back in November, during the New England by-election, it emailed a series of blunt questions to Barnaby's office.
Has your marriage broken down? Did you separate from your wife earlier this year? Have you ever had a mistress? Do you still have a mistress?
And the response? No comment. According to the Leader,
we were stonewalled by his media advisor, who refused to answer the questions and queried their relevance.
So, unable to stand up the story, the Leader did not publish. And there it remained until the Daily Telly went hunting for proof and found it in those pregnant pictures.
The Deputy Premier having a child with a former staff member is absolutely in the public interest, and the moment we were able to categorically confirm the story, and as you can understand, these things are very difficult to make sure that they're absolutely 100% correct. You know, when we got to that point, that was when we published.
So, should it have done so? In our view, yes. Do politicians have a right not to have such stuff reported? In our view, no. And as the Telly's editor Chris Dorr asked Crikey readers, how on earth could this relationship and the baby have remained a secret forever?
What would journalists have done when he started pushing a pram around Lake Burley Griffin or Parliament House?
So, does that now mean open season on politicians and their private lives? We doubt it. Mostly the public are not interested, and often there is no public interest in their knowing. But this was very different. And now, to another big political story in which the ABC has been forced to make an embarrassing apology to former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd, online, on radio and on morning TV.
Now, on Wednesday last week, we reported on a warning of critical risks in the rollout of the Rudd government's home insulation scheme. The ABC wishes to clarify that it did not intend to convey that Mr Rudd ignored safety warnings or that he lied to the Royal Commission. The ABC unreservedly apologises to Mr Rudd for any harm or embarrassment caused.
The offending story was, of course, part of the ABC's Cabinet Files secret scoop, which also took aim at Tony Abbott, John Howard and Scott Morrison. But while those stories hit their mark, the shot at Rudd hit Auntie instead. And when you look at the allegations, it's not hard to see why.
Rudd was warned of home insulation critical risks. Kevin Rudd and 2 senior Labor ministers were warned about critical risks of the home insulation scheme before the deaths of 4 young installers, according to a report in the Cabinet files. The infamous energy-efficient homes package was scrapped after the installers' deaths. Mr Rudd told a royal commission into the program the rollout would have been delayed had Cabinet been warned of the safety risks.
Now, you could easily read that as saying the then PM ignored safety warnings and subsequently lied to the Royal Commission by denying he'd received them. And that's certainly what Mr Rudd's lawyers alleged. And at least 2 prominent media commentators, the Australians Janet Albrechtsen and 2GB's Chris Smith, jumped to exactly that conclusion.
Unfortunately, Chris, I took the ABC at face value, and as a result, I said that Mr Rudd had lied to the Royal Commissioner at the highest, most dangerous level, and that he had been reckless at the highest level by which people lost their lives. And I accept those statements were wrong, and I apologise to him unreservedly for that.
Yeah, we do owe Kevin Rudd an apology, and it's clear that this story was not the smoking gun so many people thought it was, and we certainly thought it was. So, Mr Rudd, from me and the station, we apologise for the comments.
In fact, the ABC's secret document had already been analysed in 2014 by the Home Insulation Royal Commission, which found that Mr Rudd had not been warned of safety risks and which had cleared him of any such charge. So, how on earth did the ABC screw this up, given that the Commission's report is publicly available on the net? And why was News Director Gavin Morris so quick to defend the ABC when Rudd's lawyers threatened to sue?
Oh, look, obviously now there's a legal case, so I can't go into too much detail on it other than to say, I stand by the reporting we've done here, and I've obviously had a chance to go back and look at what we've done here. And I think, if you look at the articles, if you review them as put, our reporting stands up to scrutiny.
Certainly, the ABC had plenty of time before publication to get its facts right. According to John Lyons, head of investigative and in-depth journalism, the ABC took possession of the documents late last year and had months to copy and index them all. So, why did it not take more care to check its claims? In a statement, the ABC told us,
the story went through the normal editorial and legal processes.
But if that is so, those processes clearly did not work. And one reason we believe is because too few people were allowed full access to the documents. The ABC's National Investigative Unit and Four Corners, expertly equipped for this sort of major story, were kept out of the loop, and not enough experience or resources were brought to bear. ABC News Management says that criticism is inaccurate and unfair. One might also ask why the ABC gave the documents back so fast, given that Gavin Morris told The Australian,
"We could have told hundreds of stories over weeks or months."
If that is so, why on earth did the ABC not tell them? Writing in the AFR last week, one of Australia's most experienced investigative journalists, Brian Toohey, thundered,
"The ABC's filing Cabinet kowtow to ASIO and the government was gutless. It beggars belief that nothing in the documents given to the ABC could be reported in a way that served the public interest without hurting national security."
So why did the ABC not report the hundreds of stories that Morris claimed it had? Morris's answer is they chose to be selective and responsible. And an ABC spokesperson told us,
the ABC reported the stories that passed the tests of being both significant and in the public interest, and did not reveal sensitive information which might have unjustifiably endangered public safety or national security with no overarching public good.
So, did scores of stories remain untold? It is not really clear. But it's a sorry end to what in many ways was a great get for the ABC. Trusted by its source, responsible in its dealings with government, and bringing us 3 or 4 genuine scoops. How sad that what could have been a triumph ended in something of a train wreck. And you can read more about tonight's stories on our Facebook page or our website, where you can get a transcript and download the programme. You can also catch up with us on iView and contact me or MediaWatch on Twitter. And don't forget, Media Bites every Thursday. But for now, until next week, that's it from us. Goodbye.